Boom. Let's get the Facebook friends up in here before it's officially time to go. All right. I think we're good. All right. Welcome in, guys. Welcome in. It is Tuesday, August 9th, 2022. Man, summer is flying by. It's the last week without NFL and college football that we'll have in a long time. That means football's not back, but football's almost back, baby. Welcome in. Building the Broncos. I am Nick Kendell, and joined by, as always, on these Tuesday evening shows, Carl Dumler. Carl, how you doing?
I'm good. I do have to ask, did you watch the Raiders game? The Hall of Fame game?
Nope, I did not. I've been busy. Okay. Was that on Friday night?
Friday, yeah, Thursday.
Thursday? Okay, well,
yeah,
I was
Thursday.
prepping for a crazy hard hike and been doing a bunch of house stuff still. So,
Yeah.
Nope, I did not watch it. Did not prioritize it. What was it? Was it the Broncos versus Falcons Hall of Fame game? Vic Fangio's kidney stone game, right?
I think that's right.
That was enough Hall of Fame games to last me my lifetime.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm with you. It was bad football all the way around. And I mean, it's fun to watch football again. So I watched a little bit of it, about a half, but for the most part, yeah, Broncos play this week, Saturday. I'm excited to watch that a little bit. You know, it's still preseason. You and I like sometimes those end of the roster guys, just getting a chance to actually see them in football opportunities. But for the most part, yeah, it's still not quite real football yet.
Yep. It's I guess I'm not that starved. I'm more interested in the Broncos training camps and whatnot than watching the Raiders versus a meandering Trevor Lawrence-less Jaguars team. So I guess the first thing we should talk about that, though, I guess Josh Jacobs played. What do you make of that? What does that mean for the Raiders? I mean, is Ernie in here? I'm sorry, Ernie. We're talking about a team other than the Broncos. But Josh Jacobs getting a decent amount of carries in the first quarter there. I mean,
yeah,
should we read into that?
I think a little bit. I mean, it's kind of the Ezekiel Elliott situation where it's produce now or you're gone kind of thing. You use the first round pick on him and hope that he could continue that on once you paid him big money and it didn't work out. And maybe this is, I mean, way too early of this conversation, but when we're thinking about Javonte Williams, do you really want to pay this guy for what he's done in the first 4 years of his career in the NFL? And I love Javonte, and I'm excited that we don't have to worry about that for a few years.
Yeah.
But this is kind of that, I guess, warning of this is kind of what happens. Josh Jacobs looked great as a rookie. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, this is that top 10 running back. And it's just been this slow decline over time. And I think the Raiders are kind of saying, dude, this is a new regime, new coaching staff. We didn't draft you. If we find a guy that fits our system better, I'm sorry, you're gone.
Yep. And this also kind of goes back to the discussion of the running backs are pretty much only as good as their offensive line. Jacobs' play dropped a lot when the Raiders' offensive line fell apart. So it'll be interesting. And I know there's seemingly a lot of contentiousness with the very pro Williams crowd being anti Melvin Gordon. But if you're so pro Javonte Williams that you want him to get a second contract and be more than what just the first 4 years in the league, you should be pro Melvin Gordon. You know who should be pro Melvin Gordon? Javonte Williams, because keeping him fresh and not a lot of carries is a way that he's going to be able to not only get a better second contract, but probably be better in that second contract as well. So not going too far down the tracks there. Is that the ESPN sound there? What do they do these days? That's baseball tonight. I don't remember.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Cue the ESPN signature sound. That's what it says. Fellas, fantasy football draft season is right around the corner. It's time to get your snake looking right for the snake draft with the sponsors of today's show. You guessed it, Manscaped. The leaders in below-the-waist grooming have created a championship lineup with their Performance Package 4.0. Join the 6 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped and get ready for kickoff by going to manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping by using our code MHH. Inside the Performance Package 4.0, you'll learn their Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, or you'll find that the Weed Whacker ear to nose trimmer as well. Man, I'm turned 30 and all of a sudden I need that Weed Whacker for the nose trimmer as well. The Crop Preserver ball deodorant, Crop Reviver toner, Performance boxer briefs, and travel bag. Tom Brady didn't come out of retirement for you to have a hairy ball sack. Oh my goodness. And also, just speaking of something that I enjoy there, Crop Mop. It's the pH active wipe for down south grooming, and I did, like I said, a 17-mile hike, and I think 12 of the miles were in the sun, and I was a sweaty boy after the hike this week, and we stopped and got food and whatnot afterwards. I couldn't have gone there without treating myself with a crop mop beforehand. So thank you to Manscaped for the crop mop and all their good gifts, all their good items there. And again, get 20% off and free shipping with the code MHH at manscaped.com. Again, the 20% off and free shipping with code MHH at manscaped.com. It's time to put the PP back in PPR and get your grip on. My goodness, these reads, they're just unbelievable. All right. Let's say hello to everybody in the chat right after that. It's good to see you. I'm Dylan Von Arks. Sup, Broncos country. Make sure you guys hit that like button on the way in and subscribe if you haven't already. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dylan. Hope you're doing well. We have William coming in here saying, just saw a video about Colin Cowherd talking about Seattle. Haha. He was saying how they will be god awful this coming year with Pete in the system and all of that, and how statistically they have been terrible without Russ carrying them on his back. Yeah. Gosh, Carl, I'm starting to reach the point now where it's like there's so much anti-Seahawks hype and so much Broncos hype that like I'm nervous for the week 1 matchup. It's kind of like how I approach like when the Hawkeyes are playing week 1 and they're playing Northern Illinois. It's like, okay, we should win, but if we don't win, the embarrassment is going to be rough. And they're professionals. It's not to that extent, but like I'm nervous.
Yeah, it's one of those. I mean, who knows Russ better than Pete Carroll? Nobody. But who knows Pete Carroll better than anybody else? Russell Wilson. So it's kind of one of those that I think they almost kind of cancel each other out. But you're right. I mean, if the Broncos lose that one, oh my goodness, the world is going to be lit on fire at that point. And Seattle Seahawks fans are going to be unbearable if you know any of them out there. I know you live out in Seattle, so it's a bigger deal for you having to go through that walk down those streets. I can't imagine that. I lived in Seattle for a while, and even when I was there, like it was pretty unbearable when they won games. And like even when they weren't playing the Broncos, and I'd be in my Bronco gear, and they like the 2012 game, I think I've talked about it before, but just when the Broncos lost, I had all my coworkers coming and be like, "Oh my gosh, you see how terrible that was?" and just laughing in my face. And the next day, Seattle lost pretty much the same way last minute. Mm-hmm. And so then I got to laugh in their face for a day. I think I was the only person smiling in Seattle for 24 hours. But so yeah, you kind of hope that first week matchup, hopefully Russell doesn't have the jitters and all the excitement and emotions that are going to be a part of that, and doesn't have kind of a one of his worst games to start off the year. I remember Peyton Manning, his first time playing the Colts, not his best game. Yep. There's going to be emotion tied to that. Yep. And so maybe we can lean into the run game. We were just talking about it with Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon, get that going, have that be a little bit of the tone setter right off the bat. And hopefully the defense can just dominate and make it where just, whoever's starting at quarterback, Drew Lock, Geno Smith, can't get anything going.
Yeah, hopefully. Phil McLaughlin coming in with the support. Facebook stars over on Facebook. Phil, you're a star. We appreciate you. But I don't know what's going on with your profile picture here, but he says, hello, Nick, Carl, and Scott. So what's up with the Broncos linebackers being our worst position? # let's ride. And it was a article from ESPN's Bill Barnwell, who does phenomenal work. And he put out a piece there where he said the Broncos linebacking duo was the worst on the team and a reason for the Achilles heel, I guess, this season. And for me, I'm not super worried about the linebacking core. It's kind of like, let's say you get a new house and, everything in the house is really nice, but the doorknobs on the house, just kind of fine. They're not great. The doorknobs are fine. Okay, who cares? The door is great. The foundation's good. You have working plumbing, blah, blah, blah. Oh, no, the doorknobs. It's 2022. If you have terrible linebackers on the field, that will hurt you. We saw that last year. The Broncos in a few games. The Browns and the Eagles come specifically to mind for me. Those were just dreadful games from the linebacker position, to the point where they were one of the main reasons the Broncos lost. But with Josie Jewell and Jonas Griffiths / Alex Singleton, you feel a little bit better there. I do like that the Broncos are at least kind of approaching maybe another linebacker, a fourth one. I think there's some question marks there for the Stranad and et al. Behind those other guys. Heck, let's throw in Singleton too. But I feel pretty good about the top two guys, and the linebacking core, as long as they're not trash, are not going to make or break the defense this year. It's going to be the pass rush.
Right. And I mean, I know a lot of people, Roquan Smith, requesting a trade. Everybody's kind of like, oh my gosh, Broncos, this makes a lot of sense. And I remember we were pretty big fans of him coming out of college. And if he made it to the Broncos pick, that we wouldn't have minded him. And he's been a great player in the NFL.
Yeah.
He really has. I'd say he's been a top 5 player on the off-ball linebacker spot. But he's not one I'm willing to trade, in the sense of you're having to give up draft capital for a position, like you said, that's not all that valuable, and you're going to have to pay him a big contract. I mean, I don't know exactly what he's demanding out there, but it's going to be pretty big. So do you really want to give up that draft capital that the Broncos really don't have right now, on top of then another big contract? And then you're going to have to start figuring out how we're going to make this Russell Wilson big contract work. And you get so top heavy.
Yeah.
It makes the rest of the depth chart really hard to fill out.
Yep. And you also have Draymond Jones, Bradley Chubb contracts, Russell Wilson. I mean, you need those draft picks. It's going to be pretty hard to do that. And I just think there's going to be other teams who have more draft capital, more cap space, that it makes sense for them to go get him. Not that I would not like Roquan Smith. I just think that probably for where the Broncos are at, you're just not going to see them make any splashy moves right now, because their splashy move was going out and getting Russell Wilson. You're paying for that now. You take the quarterback every time. But just where we're at. Paula Anna's neighbor coming in saying, hello, everyone. We have the richest owner in the NFL. Woohoo. And Dylan saying, we got that money. Take that, Jerry Jones. Yeah, really great. So the Walton Penner Group today took over officially for the Broncos. The owner meeting happened. You heard some cheering. And then did you see Walton get up there and get Roger Goodell's name wrong? Goodell. I mean, he's not going to live that one down for me. So Roger Goodell getting in there with, I mean, gosh, does Walton have time? He's bigger than, honestly, this is a really good point of who works for who here. The owners don't work for the commissioner. The commissioner, Goodell, works for the owners. And now Goodell got a new boss.
I was going to say, I think if I'm Goodell, I'd be saying, this guy's paying me. I really don't care what he calls me. You know, if I'm getting paid that $40-50 million or whatever, I know his contract, it's crazy how much he actually makes. But I don't think he cares too much at this point. And I always kind of wonder, you know, we've got all these names are going to come up tomorrow. They're going to come to Dove Valley and do interviews and stuff like that. And that's going to be great. But I still kind of wonder what everybody's role within that ownership is going to be. Like, that's going to be my big question, is who's going to be the forefront? Who's going to be the final voice? Who's actually going to be there on the daily grind? You know, there's just so many things that come out there with this one. And I'm excited about this new ownership group, but until we see what they're kind of doing actually in season and getting things going, we can't really tell right now what they're going to be for the Broncos.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see, but congratulations to Broncos country for putting this behind us. A little bit of melancholy too, putting the Bolin era in the past, but I guess a good thing is that how it ended. The Bolin era was not great, and now we can think about all the positives that Bolin not only brought to the Broncos, but the NFL at large, and moving forward in a new era for the Denver Broncos. So really, really excited about that. And I saw some questions here about Joe Ellis, but I see that Broncos released an initial unofficial 22 depth chart here on their website as well. Maybe we should get into that for a second. But first we see Kevin Gray coming in saying, cool, now we will see what's up. Now we have new owners. I really think we are fine. Let's ride. Absolutely. Jeremy Bale's in the house. Sup, guys? Good to see you. Carl, try this one out.
Should we trade for Roquan Smith? There we go. There's that question. I say no right now. You know, if Josie Jewell or Jonas Griffith go down with injury, it'd be tough not to want to go make that trade just because you like what your team is this year. And you've got, I would say, about a 2 to 3 year window where you've got a pretty darn strong roster. You got a lot of young players that you don't have to pay for the next couple of years. I mean, I know with Russell Wilson, you're always going to have that window, but I think you've really got a strong window in the next 3 years. So it's kind of hard not to want to just go all in and make some of these things and be like the Rams and say F them picks and, those kind of things. But I still would probably pass on this one.
Yeah. Yep, that's what it seems like right now. We got Kathy Lund in the house saying, howdy, fam. How is everyone going? It's going pretty well. Excited to be here. Thanks for joining us today. Luke coming in saying, why is Nick on the right? Because Carl was already in the room. And so, I'm feeling good over here. It's a nice little spot on this side of the panel. Greg Smith in the house, dude. Good evening, Broncos country. Good to see you. Rick Barrios coming in saying, let's ride. Good to see you. Mike S., how you doing? What's up, Broncos country? DeAndre Weatherspoon, what's up, boys? Clayton Huron. It's been a second, Clayton. Hope you're doing well. Says, hey, guys, been a while. Yes, it has. Smash that like button, guys, and share family and work and some personal things going on. Well, hope everything is good, Clayton. Keep up the great work, guys. reach out if you need anything, buddy. Robot Abdun coming in. Good evening, gentlemen. Good to see you. EJ, evening, Nick and Carl. Diamond Rattler, good to see you. Diamond Weatherspoon, my boy Miles. DeAndre with the new picture there, too, I think, going on there. Good to see you. We got Zach coming in all caps saying, I want us to pick up Roquan Smith. Would be a great fit for Broncos country. Would be awesome to see him in here. Don't think it's in the cards. From my understanding, of course, the Broncos would be interested, but they don't have the flexibility right now with draft capital to get him. And you'd probably have to be taken away from a unit that is questionable to go get him. So it doesn't make sense. Like I saw some people say, hey, trade Bradley Chubb for him. You already have way more questions at edge. Not way more questions do you have at edge than linebacker, but that off-ball linebacker is like worth 15% of one good edge rusher. It's not even close to the value perspective. So obviously having Roquan would be great, but doesn't seem to be in the cards for us. Dom in the house too. Good evening, Nick, Carl, and Scott in Broncos country. New era starts today. Absolutely. And we got Luke saying Locke 7 picks in that game. Is Locke going to be playing week 1, Carl?
I don't think so. I mean, Geno Smith has gotten almost all of the snaps with the number 1 offense. Before the scrimmage, Locke had gotten 3 snaps with the starting offensive line and receivers and weapons, all that. Scrimmage, he got a couple more, obviously, and he did well in the scrimmage, but he kind of did good with the scrimmage here with the Broncos. And I just think it's one of those, people need to understand there's a lot more going into this whole equation. Just what you see in that scrimmage is not the whole evaluation. No. Like, he looked good for one day. That's great. He did that here in Denver sometimes. He even had a couple really great games for Denver. You think of the Carolina Panther game. That was a great one. The Houston Texan game, his rookie year. There were some great moments. For Locke, it's always been that consistency. Can he do this day in and day out? Can he do this week to week looking at the games? And he just hasn't proven to be that guy. And for a coach like Pete Carroll, who really leans into the defense, like you think of Fangio, Pete Carroll's just a better version of Fangio, and this like better head coach version, I should say.
A friendlier, peppier. He's the smiley face. He's comedy where Vic Fangio is tragedy.
Okay. Personality wise, very different, but yes. Their thoughts on what they want for football. They want a quarterback that's going to be consistent, that's going to protect the football. They're going to lean into the run game and play for their defense. And when Drew Lock is kind of that, the guy that just wants to launch it down the field, take chances, that doesn't play to that. And so I think he is going to struggle to win that starting job. And right now he's not even close to it.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. We have Kevin coming in here. Kevin McCaslin saying hi from Bellingham, Washington. Right up the waterway there from me. Hello from Seattle over here. It says, go Broncos. I'm from Colorado and I miss it. Washington's pretty great too. I don't want to, both Colorado, spent a lot of summer vacations in Colorado, but Bellingham, Washington is absolutely gorgeous right there. So I don't feel too bad for you there. Gary Leeds Palmer coming in saying, good afternoon, Carl, Nick, and Scott. Love to Broncos country. Go Broncos. Let's ride. Hey, Gary, we love you. Gary gave us a love this morning, so we're going to give it back to him. Good to see you, Gary. Thank you so much for the support. We appreciate you. We also have, I almost clicked on a political one. We're going to avoid the political ones for now. Mike S. Talking about that week 1 game should be a blowout, but probably will be closer than we think. Probably. That's the way to go. And we have some injury news here for you on the Broncos front as well. It's not horrifying injury news, but something to keep an eye on. Ronald Darby right now is day-to-day with a chest contusion, probably suffered in that play that I'm sure almost everyone saw, the Cortland Sutton Mossing play, and also Cortland Sutton injured as well, dealing with a little shoulder issue. So we'll be monitoring that going forward. I'm not worried about it, so to speak, but again, it's news out there that we'll want to keep an eye on. Any thoughts on that, Carl?
If they were not out there with their teammates, from what I understand, Cortland Sutton was actually in full pads today and was running a couple drills, nothing too crazy. But so really for Cortland Sutton, I'm not worried at all. I think this is more just he's a veteran. We know what he is. Really, we're trying to figure out the back end of that wide receiver room anyway. So this gives more opportunities for them to maybe get some snaps with Russell Wilson. And yeah, so for Sutton, you just want him healthy for week 1. We've talked about it before. There are some players that we'd almost rather just shut down, like almost right now, to protect them so that they're healthy for week 1.
Yep.
Like Randy Gregory, I don't need to see him in preseason to know if he can be a good football player. I need him to be in training camp a little bit, but I don't need to see him much more than that. But yeah, for Cortland Sutton, not too worried. Ronald Darby, a little bit more worried just because he has been injury prone throughout his career. And so some of these things start adding up. It gets to me a little bit. But being day to day, if he's missing like the next 2 weeks of practice, then I'm getting a lot more concerned. If here in like 3 days he's back at practice, I'm good with it.
Yep. I agree with you there on that fully. And we also got Lawrence Rivera coming into the support here saying, how many more co-owners do you think the Broncos are going to acquire? I wanted it to be Walton alone, but I don't think it's going to be like that. And who becomes the owner if he passes? He is older, just something to think about. I'm guessing that he has a family member that would take over in that situation. It does seem like he has a oldest son that is in line. That would be the next person in charge there. And also, no idea how many more people they'll add. I'd rather, I think, have the division of power, so to speak, here, rather than the dictatorship with one owner. You still have one true person in charge here, but we'll see how it plays out, and I'm eager to see the dynamics of that. But I'm thinking it's going to be a slow burn on learning about the dynamics of the ownership group.
Well, and Pinner, that's his daughter.
Yeah.
And son-in-law. So they would be the next in line, really, to receive this team. And obviously there'd be some division to some of his other kids and stuff like that. But for the most part, I think they would be taken over. And I really think that they're probably going to be actually at the forefront of this. Mm-hmm. Like Rob Walton, like he's the money, he's the face. But I think it's actually them that are going to be more the day-to-day operations of an owner.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. As long as they got Goodell in their back pocket, it'll be all good. So Broncos released their first initial unofficial training chart here. Have you had a chance to look at this yet, Carl, since I mentioned that it was released? If not, that's okay, because I can quiz. Okay, cool. We got Carl. We're going to put him on the spot. It's my favorite game. I know I have the information, the answers to the test, and I'm going to be like, Carl, you idiot. So we're going to quiz Carl now, and you guys can play in the chat as well, although I'm sure a lot of you guys already looked it up. But who wants to be a millionaire? Okay, Carl, phone a friend, 50-50. No, I'm just kidding. Offensive line, Carl. What do you think? Predictions on the offensive line. This is I'm going to give you a softball to start here.
Okay. Starting offensive line, Bowles, Reisner, Cushenberry, Miners, and Anderson.
Perfect. That's exactly what it is. No real surprises there. Netani Moody coming in as the backup right guard. Luke Wattenberg, backup center. Graham Glasgow, backup left guard. Zach Johnson, backup left tackle. We'll see how that turns out. And Cam Fleming, backup right tackle, with Tom Compton and Billy Turner listed with an asterisk next to them due to the injury. So nothing too surprising there. The wide receiver position, the Broncos, because it is the year 2022, lists 3 wide receivers as starters. I'm guessing you can guess the top 3.
Yeah, of course, KJ Hamler, Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, top 3.
Exactly. Now, after that, things get a little bit more interesting here. But the main backups here early on, so the top 6 wide receivers for the Broncos, according to this initial unofficial depth chart, Tyreek Cleveland, Montrell Washington, who's been coming on, and Kendall Hinton. So any surprises there? After that, it's Seth Williams and Trey Quinn and Brandon Johnson, with Caden Davis and Jalen Vigil way down, and Travis Fulgham and Darius Shepard way down in like 4th and 5th string.
Yeah, there really is no surprise. I mean, a lot of those guys have been with the team. Hinton, obviously, I think he's had a couple of really nice practices here recently. Brandon Johnson is the one I think you need to keep an eye out for. I've heard a lot of good things of what he's been bringing to the table. I know he was part of that group that went out there, worked out with Russell Wilson. So it seems like they like him, or at least Russell Wilson likes him. I could see him kind of pound the table for that guy and saying, I like what he brings for this offense. And so I'd say there might be a fight there for Kendall Hinton, Brandon Johnson, Tyreek Cleveland, who's going to win that final spot for the wide receivers.
And also, just to add to that, something that probably a lot of people don't give enough credit to is the special teams value. If you're the 4th, 5th, or 6th wide receiver, special teams is going to be the trump card for a lot of those guys, because you're going to need to be able to contribute as a returner or a gunner or something of that nature and have some special teams value for that 3rd phase. So those are the ones that could make a big difference here for a few of those names. And that's why a guy like Tyreek Cleveland is probably listed here as 2nd string. Maybe not the wide receiver you're hoping for, but probably the team's best gunner. Right now, am I out of place? There's nobody else really coming to mind right now that would beat him out, in my opinion.
Yeah. I've thought about this of like the preseason, since they're trying to usually figure out a lot of the back end guys that are, like you said, special teams contributors. Why don't they do more of that in the special team or in these preseason games? Just say, hey, we're going to have 5 punts for each team, and you have to figure out the coverages and just make it where, okay, these are the things we actually want to work on. I always kind of hated a little bit of sometimes the Patriots would make it where you couldn't work on your special teams. They'd tell their punter, like, just punt it out of bounds or punt it through the end zone. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, man, that is such a jerk move, but it's Belichick. Of course he's going to do that. He's going to make sure you can't get as much valuation as possible. And, but yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing some of that. And I agree. Tyree Cleveland, great on coverage and special teams. He's proven that before. I think he'll do fine. Brandon Johnson, like I said, I think I've heard some pretty good things with him with special teams so far in practice. Kendall Hinton, I don't know. We'll have to kind of see. He's a little bit on the smaller end on some of that. And I still kind of wonder his fit with what they need. I mean, I think he would be great as a slot receiver, but with Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, do you already have those kind of guys? Yeah, exactly. Do you already have enough of those guys?
Yeah, we'll see. And biggest shock, I mean, I'm just, flabbergasted here. Quarterback 1, Russell Wilson. I thought that Britt Rippon was going to come for his spot there, but nope. Russell Wilson, number 1. They still got Josh Johnson listed number 2. It sounds like a lot of people have thought that Britt Rippon has stood out a little bit more than Josh Johnson. Now, granted, Josh Johnson's going up against the 2s. Britt Rippon's going up against a lot of 3s and 4s. But still, I thought there was a little bit more of a discussion to be had there. And probably the, not surprising, but the one that has been the most contentious as far as, who is the first of this position, who's the second of this position. The first unofficial depth chart coming out, Javonte Williams, running back 1 with Melvin Gordon running back 2. Then you got Mike Boone 3. I think it's pretty safe to say that's how it's going to play out after that. No offense to, Max Borghi and, of course, Tyreek McAllister there. Any thoughts on the running backs there?
No, I mean, those are your top 3, and you're not going to keep any more than that. You're going to keep at least 1 on your practice squad because obviously running backs get hurt quite often. And so I could see that. And we got Javonte Williams taking the first spot. I don't know if that's good or bad. I'd rather have him healthy in the last run of the season. Yeah, I mean, I think early on, especially, you're going to have pretty close to a 50-50 split. You really are going to go hot hand early on. And it wouldn't surprise me if for the first 8 games, Melvin Gordon is the better running back. I think he understands a little bit more of this wide zone scheme, understands the cutback lanes a little bit more. I mean, we talked about this with Javonte Williams last year. He was kind of a hit or miss running back. It's either he's going to get tackled in the backfield or he's going to have a huge game. And part of that was just he just was missing the hole that was opening up. And from what I understand at practice so far, he's had his ups and downs. He's had some big runs, but he's also had times where he's just run into the back of his lineman instead of seeing the back cut open up for him. And where Melvin Gordon, at least when I was at practice this last week, I mean, Melvin Gordon looked like the better running back, if I'm being honest. I thought he had some very explosive plays, did a great job getting some of the backside cuts in there. And I like I said, I think he could maybe be the more trusted guy early in the season.
Yeah. 1A, 1B for me. I think it's going to be a pretty close to 50-50 split this year. Playing the hot hand. This is a team that I think is, despite having Russell Wilson, there still will be plenty of volume for the running game. It's more about the explosive and efficiency of the pass game that you hopefully will get with Russell Wilson rather than the death by 1,000 paper cuts, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Drew Brees style of offense that some people have grown accustomed to. I don't think that's going to be the case with Russell Wilson on this team, but we'll see. And I guess we also didn't talk about the tight ends here. This is actually probably the most interesting here. Mm-hmm. So you have tight end 1, Albert Okwuegbunam, number 2, Greg Dulcich, number 3, Andrew Beck, and then it's Eric Tomlinson, Rodney Williams, Eric Saubert, Dylan Parham. To me, I've said this on the show multiple times, this tight end position, if we are really being specific about it, it's kind of like the defensive line where it's like, okay, you're listed as DT, but there's a difference between playing the 4I versus the 0 and 1. So the way I see that this is lining up right now is that you have, for the F tight end spot, Albert Okwuegbunam is ahead of Greg Dulcich. Andrew Beck's on his own island as an F. And this to me says they have Eric Tomlinson ahead of Eric Saubert for the Y alignment.
I'm a little surprised. No, I think you're right on that. I'm a little surprised they don't have Saubert a little bit higher because he has been kind of the star of camp, I guess you could say. You see his name mentioned quite a bit that he's been working well with Russell Wilson. So I kind of expected him to be a little bit higher, if I'm being honest. And I expected Andrew Beck to be a little bit further down. I just, I don't know. There's something about Beck. I'm not the biggest fan of him. I understand he's like the most versatile, where he can play fullback, can play inline tight end, F tight end. I mean, he can kind of move all over the place, but he's kind of the jack of all trades, master of none. And I know that it's that he's below average in all of them is my problem.
Yeah.
So I'd rather just have like you're truly this, and now you got to be great at this one position, rather than having this guy that you kind of have move around that just doesn't do good at anything. I'm maybe being way too harsh here on Andrew Beck, but I would hate to use a roster spot for that.
Yeah. I think there's an argument for the versatility because you're not showing your hand as much pre-snap. If you have somebody who is really like A in one area and F in the rest, you're not probably going to use them in the F, so it kind of gives the defense a tell. But I think you are right in your assessment that he's a meh player, and you really hope that somebody like Okoye-Benam or any of those tight ends could play the F spot enough that you could open up the roster spot and not have to keep Beck on here, just because he is whatever. Now the defensive side of the ball, things get a little bit interesting here on the defense. Starting defensive trio here on the interior defensive line, the likes of Draymond Jones and DJ Jones, shock no one. Deshaun Williams, the other starting defensive lineman here, is listed as the defensive end on this line. So two things here that stand out to me. DJ Jones listed as a defensive tackle, specifically not going to be playing that Shelby Harris role, but more to the nose tackle according to the depth chart here. And Deshaun Williams filling in more so for the Shelby Harris spot.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering if it's either Mike Purcell not showing as well as you would like him to, or is it Deshaun Williams playing so well that you just have to find a way to get him on that starting unit, where you're willing to move DJ Jones maybe to not his perfect position.
Yeah.
But like I said, you just want the best three out there. I'm not quite sure which way that goes. I've heard Mike Purcell's not looked the best this offseason, that maybe they could be looking for a cut down guy that can play that nose tackle position. And then you can keep DJ Jones a little bit more on that defensive end spot and really have the big boys up front to take on the run. I do have to say, Deshaun Williams, man, that guy is wide. Like, he blocks out the sun. He is just, I can't get it on the screen. I mean, he'd be taking up this whole screen if he was here doing this video. Big boy.
Yeah.
I mean, he's short, but he's big, stocky. So he's not going to get pushed around too much.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've heard pretty good things about Deshaun Williams. I think he is doing pretty good out there. And last year I thought he had some nice flashes, did pretty well when some injuries started showing up.
Yeah.
And so it'd be nice to see if he took his game to that next level.
Yeah. Will be interesting to see. I think I said it this morning. I wish there was a little bit more length and mass at that spot. You talk about Deshaun Williams being big, but he's 6'2", 290, not super big for that 4-eye spot. I know short and squat, but you're not talking about like an Ashawn Robinson type there who you can 2-gap from the 4-eye spot, but still should be a good player. I'd rather him be the first guy off the bench, but Mike Purcell is a backup here. Expensive for a backup nose tackle who's going to play 20 to 30% of the snaps, so worth monitoring here. Then Jonathan Harris listed above the 3 youngest players on the defensive line, Marquise Spencer, Matt Henningsen, and Awuma Owuzurike. This is a spot here. The defensive lineman here, this third unit is a span, the second unit. Probably one of the things I'm most interested in watching preseason this year. Who is going to establish the pecking order? Who's going to make plays? Because you don't get as much information from the practices, training camps of the trenches as you do other areas. And there's a lot of interesting names here along the interior defensive line that I think the pecking order is far from set here.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if none of the guys on that second unit made this roster. You're most likely going to keep the 2 rookies. Maybe Henningsen gets put on, or you try to put him on practice squad. He's a later round pick. Maybe you can sneak him that way. But like I said, Mike Purcell, he's expensive for a backup.
Yeah.
Ajim, this is year 3. Have you proven yourself? We got these other young guys that we can keep around for a few more years. You've got to step up and actually prove that you've earned your roster spot now. You can't just say, oh, I'm a 3rd round pick, I make the roster. Jonathan Harris, again, he's kind of just a meh player. You can replace him. And so I could see, like I said, 2 of the guys from that 3rd unit make the roster, and maybe you bring in somebody that's a little bit cheaper option than Mike Purcell. This is going to be, like I said, the group that's probably going to have the most changes throughout the rest of the preseason.
Yep, absolutely. And we got Robert Caslow saying, is Draymond on the way out? Draymond's in the last year of his contract, so it could go multiple ways with him being on his way out. he's a good player. And if they had him under contract for more years, then no, he wouldn't be. But it's possible that he plays so well that Broncos don't find he wants more than the Broncos are willing to pay him, and then somebody out there is willing to pay him more. Or he could be, just okay this year, and the Broncos look to go elsewhere and pay maybe somebody like Bradley Chubb instead. So we'll see. But don't know if he's on his way out per se. And Lawrence Rivera coming in and said, honestly, go after Alexander Johnson and any other tight end after the depth chart release. I don't have confidence in those positions at all. There's other linebackers out there. I don't know what's going on with Alexander Johnson. I thought he was okay. I definitely rolled my eyes a lot when people said Kenny Young and Alexander Johnson were better than Josie Jewell, because eye test did not match up that on my end. But and the money and interest indicates I was right on that. But it does surprise me that he's still out there. Tight ends as well. I think you have so many names here that you probably can just kind of sit back and see how it plays out. But the tight end was always going to be a weaker-ish spot on the roster this year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind Alexander Johnson if he's coming in on pretty much the vet minimum.
1 year, yeah.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Especially if one of the top guys goes down with injury, I can understand that kind of move. He knows the building, he knows some of the coaches, all that kind of stuff. But I'm not really feeling like I need to bring him in right now. Yeah. I know they brought in a couple veteran guys for a tryout this last week. Joe Schobert. I can't remember who the other one was that they brought in. But yeah, Anthony Barr. That was the other one that they were trying to get to sign. So obviously they're still looking, but the fact that they haven't signed Alexander Johnson kind of shows where they view him right now.
Yep. Absolutely. And Andrew Baker coming in. Does Russ put to sleep the narrative of not using tight ends or throwing over the middle of the field? I think that narrative is probably still going to be out there somewhat, but you just hope he can be a little bit more efficient with it so the other teams have to respect it. But I think the narrative will probably stay up there just a little bit.
It does sound like they are making a concerted effort to really work the middle of the field here in preseason or in training camp. And when I was there, they were working the middle of the field quite often. And so I think they're trying to get that to be a part of this system and trying to work with Russ on, like, they know he can throw deep. And really this training camp, you haven't heard of him throwing a ton of deep passes. It's been a lot more of the underneath stuff. And I think a big part of that is he says, this is the area I need to work on. I need to be able to take the checkdowns. I need to be able to take sometimes what the defense gives me. If they're playing that too deep shell, okay, yeah, I'm going to take the intermediate or the smaller throw and go get that 10 yards and say, thank you very much for opening up the field like that. Yeah. And like I said, they worked on that a lot. And so I could see a little bit more over the middle. Tight ends, they've been pretty involved throughout training camp. And we're going to see, I mean, obviously in practice, when they can't hit you and you're trying to get some of these things worked on, is different than in a game where all of a sudden you kind of, all those instincts just kick back in and you're going where you feel comfortable. And so I think there's going to be a little more, maybe not as much as some people would like.
Yeah, definitely possible. So thank you so much for the comments and all the support there, guys. Keeping at it here. Phil McLaughlin saying, was said the 2-minute drill ended in a field goal, but happy to hear Hackett tell us that Alberto Koibanam is improving as a blocker. He's going to need to be on the field. Maybe it's never going to be the plus player as a wide tight end, although he has the body frame for it. But even just being, competent out there goes a long way when you are as athletic as he is.
Yeah, he's big.
Yeah.
Seeing him, I mean, he's 6'5", and he's all of 6'5". The Broncos could have a pretty decent basketball team. When you got Cortland Sutton at 6'4", unfortunately, Tim Patrick going down, he was 6'4". You got Dulcich at 6'3" or 6'4", something like that. Eric Tomlinson, that guy is huge. I mean, he looks like an offensive lineman out there. There's a reason they love him for that run blocking. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like they worked some plays this week to try to get him a little more involved in the pass game. So you're not giving away, hey, he's on the field, we're running the football kind of thing. I mean, you got to do a little bit of that with him just to keep a defense honest. But yeah, Alberto, if he can pick up that run blocking ability, he can become a pretty good tight end in the NFL. Yeah, I don't think it's actually that hard to crack the top 10 tight ends in the NFL. Like you got like the top 5 guys, and then there's this giant drop off after that. And so for him to get up into that kind of conversation, I've heard some people have Noah Fant in their top 10. It's not like Noah Fant has done a ton in the NFL. He's been good. He's been decent, but nothing outstanding. Yeah. So, yeah, I think Alberto could get into that kind of conversation if he can become a good run blocker and consistent as a pass catcher.
Definitely possible. We'll see if that happens. Thank you so much for the support, Phil. Keeping it going here, a position that I am very intrigued by this season, the pass rushers, the edge rushers specifically. Bradley Chubb with Malik Reed listed as the starter opposite Bradley Chubb. Bradley Chubb, strong linebacker, Malik Reed, weak linebacker. Then after that, the second string, young guys, Baron Browning and Nick Benito. After that, Kongbo and Aaron Patrick. And then way down, even further down, Kongbo ahead of Jonathan Cooper. Pretty shocking there. And then Christopher Allen listed as the fourth string weak side linebacker with Randy Gregory listed at the fifth string, but the asterisk by him because he's injured right now. So I guess first thing that surprised me here, Malik Reed listed as the starter instead of Baron Browning. From what I've seen and heard, Baron Browning's been making more splash plays, but Reed has been making some plays as well. And then this, back end of the guys as well, Allen, Jonathan Cooper, even Nick Benito, second string. You'd hope he'd beat out the undrafted free agent even as an incumbent, but not the case. So another unit that I'm just dying to evaluate in preseason. Maybe I have some bias here, Carl. I do like the defensive trenches the most, but fascinated to see how it plays out.
Yeah, and I do wonder a little bit if this is kind of the trying to play chess compared to checkers in the NFL of Malik Reed being listed as a starter and trying to drive up his cost. If you're trying to get that draft capital, well, edge rusher is one of those positions you can get some pretty decent value. And if he can show himself pretty well in preseason, all of a sudden, maybe he becomes one of those mid-round picks that you're able to get from a team that has some injuries or realizes that they're not as good at that position as they like. And I mean, it might also be that Malik Reed proves himself that he should be a quality backup for the Broncos too. I don't know exactly. He does have starting experience in the NFL, so it doesn't quite surprise me that he's over Baron Browning at this point, since Baron Browning has never started at edge here in the NFL. But I do expect Baron Browning to beat him out if Gregory's not ready for week one.
Yeah. And they'll use rotation anyway.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You're always going to use that big time rotation there. So yeah, I'm not quite surprised by it yet, but Malik Reed, I've heard some rumblings. The Broncos are really trying to push pretty hard to get him some trade value.
Yeah. Jonathan Cooper being listed fourth string. Very interesting. So we'll see how it plays out here. Linebacker, no shock here. Josie Jewell and Jonas Griffith, the starters, followed by Alex Singleton and Justin Strnad. And then you have Kenai Muaga and Barrington Wade as your third stringers. Seems pretty obvious to me if they're bringing another linebacker, that second string could really use one. No offense really to Justin Strnad. We talked earlier about, the Cleveland game and I think the Eagles game as well. Justin Strnad, one of the reasons the Broncos linebackers were so poor. I know that it was Ijiro Evero, I think, just recently spoke out positively about Strnad, but the Broncos' actions in the front office say otherwise, going after Anthony Barr, interested in Joe Schobert. So we'll see how that plays out. No real shocks there, though, right, Carl? I mean, linebacking group there is what it is. And I'd expect them only to keep four of those guys there with that third and fourth, honestly. Special teams is going to be a big tiebreaker there. Cornerback room, really annoyed here that they've listed only two cornerbacks here. They're really smart in listing the offense and 11 personnel, but they list 3-4 base for the starting defense. Like, what year is it? Starting linebackers here, Patrick Surtain, the second, Ronald Darby. Then you have your second string, Michael Ojemudia and Kawan Williams. Then you have Damari Mathis and Asang Bassi. Then Bless Austin and Fayon Hicks. And then Donnie Lewis Jr. and Jaquan McMillan. I think Fayon Hicks is one we can talk about here, but after that, will be interesting to see, Asang Bassi versus Fayon Hicks. What's Damari Mathis's role? And Michael Ojemudia. So again, how they have it listed, it's really hard to actually put in a depth chart of where all these guys are probably going to line up. But it really doesn't lend itself to these guys' exact positions and roles.
Yeah, I'm with you. And so, yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that group plays out as well. I think wide receiver and cornerback are the two rooms that I can see the most variance of who's going to make this roster at this point. Yep. But we have Chase Wellner coming in here with a super chat. Appreciate that, Chase, saying any positional matchups versus Dallas that intrigue you?
Go ahead, Carl. You go first.
Well, I mean, Dallas has, at least in the past, they've had usually pretty good offensive linemen. I mean, I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of starters that play. So that's always kind of the hard part of
right. But practice.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess, we could talk about that because since they're going to do the practices, I would say the Broncos offensive line versus that Dallas defensive line. I mean, you got Parsons, you got Lawrence, you got a few things there for Dallas that are going to give the Broncos some challenges. So especially Calvin Anderson. Can he hold up against like a Micah Parsons, at least slow him down a little bit? I mean, you're not going to win that matchup every single time, but if you can at least look competent I'm going to feel a lot better about Calvin Anderson starting, because Micah Parsons, probably one of the top 10 pass rushers in the NFL right now. Yeah. I mean, I think we can say that after his rookie year. He looked incredible.
Yep.
And so, yeah, like I said, if he can look halfway competent, I'm good with him there.
That's obviously a superstar matchup that comes to mind. The other one is probably CeeDee Lamb versus Patrick Surtain Jr. or the second, out there on an island. It'll be fun to see. But I'm really curious to see how these Broncos wide receivers match up against the Cowboys cornerbacks here. Obviously, it's Russell Wilson's. They're going to be trying to attack here, not just kind of install. And Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy have been okay in camp, but it seems like the defense has more or less won the day more times than not so far this season. And maybe it's because, with the likes of, especially in the 7-on-7, practice style of play, having Justin Simmons and Patrick Surtain makes it pretty darn hard to throw the football. So curious to see what Trevon Diggs versus the likes of Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton can come out, because if this Broncos team is going to be good this season, especially with Tim Patrick going down, you need Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton to probably take a step forward and really show themselves out. And Trevon Diggs, he seems to be in an interesting spot right now. I don't know if you saw, he deactivated his Twitter after getting burnt by some undrafted free agents in Dallas camp. So really want those Broncos wide receivers to step up. We're going to need them this year to step up big time. And finally, talking about the secondary here, we're going to round it out here with the cornerback room. No real shocks here for me at all. Kareem Jackson, Caden Stearns, Delarian Turner-Yell, 1, 2, 3 for strong safety. Justin Simmons, PJ Locke, Jamar Johnson, J.R. Reed, 1, 2, 3, 4 for the free safety spot. Strong safety, free safety. I mean, the Broncos are going to play more too high. So really, they're just labels. They're going to play a little bit of everything. Who's going to be deep, who's not going to be deep. There will be some cover 3 looks, but I'm guessing it'll start off as a cover 2 look pre-snap. But no real surprises here for me on the special team side, I guess, other than maybe Jamar Johnson being listed ahead of J.R. Reed, considering the special teams tiebreaker there that Jamar Johnson does not really seem to have. But again, another area that will be interesting to see if a guy steps up. And come on, Delarian Turner-Yell, 5th round pick. You need to go out there and make some plays here if you're going to make the roster this season. It sounds like that might be a little bit in jeopardy.
Yeah. I mean, I think he sets up well to be a good special teams kind of guy. He's aggressive. He's fast. He has no problem wanting to hit somebody. All things that play well into being a good special teamer and being a gunner. But yeah, you're right. He's got to go out there and make some plays here in special teams. And really, I think he's one of those guys, maybe games are better for him than practices, because it actually plays to his strengths of actually getting to hit somebody and be that guy that is kind of the intimidator over the middle. That's what he loved to do in college. Now, it led to some injuries, but because he is kind of a smaller guy, but still, like that's where he wants to be at. And so special teams and getting the opportunity on defense here, that he's gonna get a lot of snaps in preseason for sure. And so I think he's going to prove himself well to be on this roster.
Yep. It will be interesting to see. And we got Gary Leeds Palmer coming in saying, how much do you think the ones will play? I think the only ones you will see are the ones that are battling to be ones. So you have your guards potentially out there. Right tackle Calvin Anderson. I don't need to see Melvin Gordon or Javonte Williams. I don't need to see Cortland Sutton, KJ Hamler, or Jerry Jeudy. Would like to see the tight ends out there. Don't need to see Russell Wilson. Don't need to see DJ Jones, Draymond Jones, Josie Jewell, Patrick Surtain, Ronald Darby, Kareem Jackson, Justin Simmons, like none of those guys. But the other ones that are potentially battling for a spot, Jonas Griffith, Alex Singleton, Deshaun Williams, Mike Purcell. I know you're a vet, but you're fighting for a spot, in my opinion, buddy. Those guys want to see them out there in the preseason game.
Yeah, I'd probably agree. I think at least this upcoming game, maybe a few of the offensive linemen, just because if there's any unit that's probably going to struggle early in the season, it's going to be that offensive line. Having to work as one unit in this wide zone scheme, where you're working to pass guys off. Sometimes you're going to have one hand on 2 different guys. And so you're kind of working and waiting for your other guy to get that. And you got to work on just the feel of when to move forward. That takes a little bit of time. And so you might actually be trying to get a few more snaps for those guys. And like I said, there's a lot more battles going on with the offensive line anyway. So if anybody plays in this first game that are going to be starters, I would say that would probably be the unit.
Yep. Sounds good. Well, Carl, last episode here before we actually get some real new Broncos footage and games to evaluate. So going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully this is a illuminated week. I remember a year ago, the Broncos going up against the Vikings being like the quarterbacks are not very good. And that kind of was the lead on to the rest of the season. So hopefully we have a good preview, prologue, right? Is it prologue? Before the season starts off here with this combined practice and against an interesting team in the Dallas Cowboys, a team that is definitely not devoid of talent, maybe a little bit overrated, but a team that still has talent that will be able to find some things out about the Broncos. So one word, Carl, before you get out of here, what are the things you're most excited about for this combined practice week and the preseason game, since we won't see you before that again?
Well, I think I'm excited to hear how this defense does against Dallas. Just, the defense has been winning against Russ and the Broncos offense so far, and it has a lot of us kind of excited about what they could be, of maybe being a top 5 unit and really being kind of that tone setter for the Broncos that helps them, especially just as the offense figures things out, that maybe you're still winning games because the defense is holding teams down and the offense struggles there a little bit the early season. Can they do that against Dallas? Because they do have, like I said, some pretty nice weapons. You got CeeDee Lamb. Love that guy. You remember how much I loved him coming out of the draft.
Yep, I know. That was your guy.
And like I said, having him go against Patrick Surtain, that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm very, very excited to hear about that. But also just hearing, can our pass rushers win against this offensive line that has a little bit more of a veteran presence for Dallas? That the Broncos are still figuring a lot of things out of moving guys in and out. And Draymond Jones and DJ Jones and pass rushers sounds like they've been having their way. Can they do that against Dallas too? If they can do that, then I'm going to feel really good about this team moving forward. I trust the cornerbacks. I trust the safety group to be pretty good for the Broncos. But like we've talked about in the past, the make or break for this season could be really, can that pass rush actually work up front? Can you get home with 4? And if you can, this team could be really, really fun this year.
Yeah, for me, it's to see if the offensive line doesn't completely implode going up against the pass rushers that Dallas has. Not only Micah Parsons, but you have a Dexter Lawrence as well, who's a really talented player. So hopefully that we'll get a preview here this week, because if this is a real big issue, it might be an issue throughout the season for a lot of the Broncos opponents. The other one is you're talking about the pass rush. I don't know how much we're going to get from it from the combined practices and without the starters and whatnot, but Broncos last year were horrible on first down and second down and stopping the run. I think they were one of the worst teams in football on 3rd and short. I think they had the 3rd worst rate of yards to go on 3rd down in the NFL for the defense. And maybe you're not going to be able to get that in practices, given it's more of like a 7-on-7 kind of thing. But can the Broncos front 7 hold up against the Cowboys run? The offensive line of the Cowboys is not what it used to be. Still a team that wants to run the ball. Ezekiel Elliott back there. Hopefully they'll rise to the challenge. So that's going to be it, guys. We appreciate you. Everyone, make sure you're following Carl on Twitter. Carl is at Carl Dumler MHH. I'm at Nick Kendell MHH. Also, make sure you're following us at BTB Football Pod and that's the other one. Excuse me. And at Mile High Huddle, of course. Also, make sure you're joining us at Facebook at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. And subscribe, like, and share if you haven't done so yet over on YouTube. Click the bell notifications. That way you know when we go live. Of course, this is Building the Broncos. Carl, any plans the rest of the night? What's up?
Well, actually, I'm starting my new race tonight. I just finished my 145-mile run.
Wow.
Not all at once, obviously, but just finished that. My Lord of the Rings run. So I get the ring to rule them all here pretty soon in the mail. Pretty excited about that. But now I'm starting the Great Wall of China run. And it's like 2,448 miles.
Man, I shake my head. That sounds horrible to me. I'll walk all day. But the running part is just not for me. Give me the elevation gain. We're all good. Well, I'm going to go cook dinner, do some laundry. So kind of boring night, but enjoying it. So make sure you guys are out there choosing kindness, choose compassion. Don't drink and drive. Marshawn Lynch is just arrested in Las Vegas. Not good. So we appreciate you guys. And Carl, who's going to win the game? I'm going to be on again, so this is just for you.
I'll go the Broncos. I think they've got a lot of depth on that defense to keep Dallas pretty low score. And Brett Rippon, I've been hearing some pretty good things about that guy. He's been making some pretty big time throws. Josh Johnson sounds like he's been a little more consistent from throw to throw, but Brett Rippon, I think he's going to hit a couple deep ones that give the Broncos the victories in this game.
All right. Well, we'll see. preseason games. I don't know. I'm not a degenerate. We'll see how it plays out. Hopefully the Broncos win. But we'll have a better idea after the combined practices. So everyone, like I said, choose kindness, choose compassion. We'll see you later. Go Broncos.